I actually have been in the business over 15 years, but I haven't always been a broker. You can hear the Southern accent right now. I'm Nashville born and raised. I'm what they consider a unicorn because there's not a lot of us around here these days. In Memphis, I was a marketing business major in school. And so there was a marketing position open at the Cushman affiliate in Memphis, and I took the job. Well, I ended up growing that position. I kind of grew into it. I grew it up. I became a partner at that firm. And I played a large role in business development. And the next logical step was to go into brokerage. So I did that. And if you're doing brokerage in Memphis, Tennessee, that's America's distribution center. It's a huge warehousing market. It's a large industrial market. And so I logically kind of fell into an industrial role. So I always say I didn't pick industrial brokerage. I think it picked me, but I'm sure glad it did. But about 3 years ago, my husband and I decided to move back to Nashville. So I basically had to take the business that I had built and learned in Memphis and start from scratch here in Nashville. So I'm with Boundary Commercial here in Nashville now. And my main focus is on industrial tenant representation. When the pandemic first started, there was this time of everybody's, whoa, what's happening? What's going to happen? And so I think all businesses kind of stopped for probably a brief 1 to 2 month period. And this is logically COVID, nobody could go out. Now, all of this stuff that had traditionally been shopped for in the store personally was now flowing through shipping channels, delivery channels, logistics channels. Not that they always had. So that product was coming through the warehousing system, but not going into a retail location. And so that really helped catapult industrial because those tenants who deliver these products or store these products were now having to pivot and up their inventories because those inventories weren't making it on the shelves anymore. They were going straight to the consumer. So industrial took off like crazy and it hasn't slowed down since. So we had a lack of inventory already. And then with COVID, and we also had tornadoes last year, that accelerated tenants into these spaces that were available. And now our vacancy is around like just over 2%. So there's hardly any inventory out there. Okay, so you take that, you think about the basic law of supply and demand. You've got increased demand because of COVID, and you've got decreased supply because Nashville doesn't have a lot of development pipeline. And so landlords, what we've seen, particularly on the rental rate side, rental rates have gone up 65% in the last 6 years. In the last year alone, I would say rents have gone up 8 to 10%. So typically as a broker, when you're doing a deal, if you compare that to traditional rate bumps that are built into a lease, annual increases built into a lease, typically we see increases anywhere from 2.5% to 3% a year. So the tenants were not only at a lower rate, they were only seeing like maybe at that point, probably 2 to 2.5% increases. And now they're negotiating a deal where their rates almost double and the increases in their rents are going up at a faster pace as well. As far as other concessions, we're not seeing a lot of free rent. Typically maybe you can get a month on a 5-year deal, possibly 2. And really, because of the lack of space, you don't have a lot of availability in the markets. You don't have a lot of options, which decreases that competition amongst landlords to win the deal. They know they're going to get the deal, so they don't have to be as aggressive on the concession side. A lot of the tenants that are on those lower rates right now and they're bumping up to a higher rate, one of the creative ways that I've seen with a lot of my tenants to increase their footprint without necessarily increasing their cost as much, kind of mitigating that cost increase, is a lot of them are in lower, in industrial, we talk about clear heights, ceiling heights. You basically, most new buildings today are built at 30-foot clear. A way that our tenants can lessen the blow of that rate increase is I have a lot of tenants that are in, say, 25,000, 30,000 feet. But they're in lower clear height buildings. Okay. And so maybe their clear height, ceiling height right now, and their older building is 16 to 18 foot clear. So what they can do is basically lease the same amount of space and go into a 28 to 30 foot clear warehouse and rack higher. So basically you're not paying for all that air. You're only paying for the square footage of your space. So you can actually get more product in the warehouse the higher your ceilings are. As far as warehousing technology, I do know that right now inventory management is key when now you have, especially in e-commerce, when you have somebody who has a physical retail presence and a warehouse. Managing your inventory is so important because when you order something online, that order actually, I don't know if you noticed this, but and Target's a perfect example. Sometimes those orders come from a warehouse, but a lot of big users are shipping them straight out of their retail facilities. So a user like Target, a national tenant, may be able to keep their warehouse footprint down and kind of reposition some of their retail footprint to be more of a DC to ship out orders from. So I am seeing that transition over to fulfillment from a retail outlet, but all of that boils down to how you're managing your inventory. But I will say, as far as emerging trends goes, we can continue to see a need for industrial. So I do foresee across the nation development continuing, people seeking out industrial for investment purposes, users wanting to take down more space. And I'm also seeing another interesting trend that I've seen over the last few months is users wanting to operate out of these facilities called truck terminals, which aren't traditional warehouses. They're basically narrow covered warehouses that you don't store product in, but you have trucks that come in one side. These are basically last mile locations. Trucks come in one side, the pallets come off the truck, they're broken down, and on the other side you have trucks. They go on to two other trucks and they go out to maybe someone's doorstep or their next stop, which is usually within 20 miles of the facility. So I am seeing an emerging need for these types of facilities, also an emerging need just for trailer parking. If you think about it, over the last few months, we've had some of the highest record orders for semi-truck trailers on record. Okay. And you see a lot more trailers on the interstate, on the road, but those trailers have to be parked somewhere. So I do have a lot of tenants who are saying, they're building this in their lease. I need this many trailer spots. I have to find a location where I have an acre of trailer parking because they're placing so many orders. And yeah, when these trucks aren't on the road, when the trailers aren't on the road, these are 53-foot trailers. You can't just park them anywhere. You can't park them on a, like right in, where you park a normal car. So there is an increased need for parking and there's a lack of space for it right now. So a few emerging trends that I've seen, at least from my market.